Hello, viewers and listeners. In the series of international relations theory, today I am going to discuss with you about realism, which is the most dominant school of thought in international relations. And first, we will discuss about classical realism in international relations. So, when we talk about classical realism, sometimes it is also called as political realism. It is a school of thought that explains international relations in terms of power. It means that classical realist thought or realism or political realism, it revolves around one thing, that is power. It is power centric. The exercise of power by states towards each other is sometimes called as realpolitik, or simply sometimes it is even called as power politics. Modern realist theory, it was developed in reaction to liberal tradition that realist scholars often called as idealism. Idealism emphasizes on the positive side of human nature. It also emphasizes on international law. It accepts the role of international morality. It also acknowledges and gives a greater role to international organization, and it believes that other than power, all these vectors, all these institutions, they also influence the study of international relations. In realist thought, human beings, they are generally characterized as being preoccupied with their own well-being in their competitive relations with each other. It means that when we talk about human beings in the field of IR, then their primary motivation is their own selfish interest. In any kind of group activity, they always try to protect, preserve, and pursue their selfish interest. Some of the basic realist ideas are: first, a pessimistic view of human nature. So when we say that realist scholar, they have a pessimistic view about human nature, it means that they primarily focus on the negative side of human nature. According to them, human beings are selfish, they are self-centered, they don't have any altruistic feelings. It means that in any kind of activities, they always primarily try to protect their own interest. Apart from that, human beings are also ambitious. They are also power mongers, so they always chase power, they want to become powerful, they want prominent positions, right? Similarly, when this particular human nature, if we see it from the perspective of state, then state also act in a similar fashion. Second thing is, it has a conviction that international relation is necessarily conflictual in nature, and that those international conflicts are ultimately resolved by war. So here we can see two things. One is that international relation is necessarily conflictual. It means that conflict, wars, they are something which are a necessary, inseparable part of international relations. You cannot, see international relations or understand international relations or even understood world history without focusing on the conflicts and the causes of the conflicts, wars, etc. Second thing is that generally all these international conflicts are ultimately resolved by war. Now, it is not the absolute reality, but realist scholars believe that war is the primary means to resolve all these conflicts. Third thing is, it has a very high regard for the values of national security and state survival. It means that realist scholars, they give lot of importance to national security. According to them, every state is primarily concerned about its national security. Now, national security is an area that can be explained, that can be understood by each and every state in a different manner. So anything can be justified in the name of national security, and any action, any step that will be taken by any state, it can be justified on that ground that it is in the direction of national security. Another thing is, they also give importance to state survival because they believe that in order to ensure the security of a state or the security of the people of the state, from all kind of external challenges, all kind of external pressures, threats, etc., every state they have to resolve, they have to adopt such kind of policies through which they can ensure their survival. Fourth thing is, realism, it has a basic skepticism that there can be progress in international politics which is comparable to that in domestic political life. It means that they believe that there is a difference in international politics and there is a difference in domestic politics. So both are different. In domestic policies, the kind of policies or the kind of approach that we can employ, it may or may not be relevant in case of international relations. When we look at the history of international relations, particularly when we talk about the history of realism, then realism, it has very deep historical roots. It has a long historical traditions. So we can explore the origin of realism from the Chinese strategist Sun Tzu, who has written the famous text called The Art of War during 6th century BC, and he has advised the rulers of the state how to survive during the period of warring states. So during the time of war, what kind of strategy should be adopted by a state, and whether the state should bother about morality and moral principles, ethics, etc. or not. Sun Tzu has highlighted that particular aspect, that how a state or a king should behave at the time of war, or what kind of strategies he should adopt. He also emphasized the role of power and denounced moral reasoning. Thucydides, Machiavelli, Hobbes, and indeed all other classical realist scholars, they share the same kind of views to a greater or a lesser extent. It means that they have a commonality, they have a similarity of views when they talk about realism. The international realist thought, it has when we talk about the classical realist thought, it has three primary thinkers. The first one is the ancient Greek historian Thucydides. The second one is the Renaissance Italian political theorist Niccolo Machiavelli. And the third one is the 17th century English political and legal philosopher Thomas Hobbes. So here we are going to discuss their views about realism, or because they were not much concerned about what they are saying. It will be seen from the realist lenses, or it will be analyzed later on from the realist perspective. Now here one thing that is common in all three is that they have a huge impact of their settings, the conditions or the time when they were living. So what they have seen around themselves, it has a lot of impact on their understanding of international politics, on their understanding of how a state should behave, on their understanding of how the ruler of a particular state should behave, if they want to protect, preserve, and further expand the interest of their people. Now, the first scholar here is Thucydides. He believes and he saw international, the competition as something which is inevitable, in conflict between ancient Greek city-states and between the neighboring non-Greek empires such as Macedonia and Persia. So Thucydides, he believed that the competition between ancient Greek city-states and between other non-Greek empires, it was something which is natural, it was something which is inevitable, it is something that cannot be escaped. He further said that the city-states were substantially equal in terms of their powers. So there were a few city-states that were having greater powers, such as Athens, Sparta, and the Persian Empire, and there were many other smaller and lesser powers, such as the tiny island statelets of the Aegean Sea. So that inequality was considered to be inevitable and natural. Now, this is something important here. So here Thucydides, he acknowledged that states are unequal. States are not equal. So whenever they claim equality, whenever they claim equal respect, whenever they want that their sovereignty should not be burst by any other external power, that claim is as such not based on the factual reality on ground because states are unequal. It is also a distinctive feature of Thucydides' brand of realism that it has this naturalistic character. Aristotle said that man is a political animal. Thucydides said that in effect to that, political animals are highly unequal in their power and capabilities to dominate others and to defend themselves. It means that even if we look at all the human beings, they are different in terms of their capabilities. They have different inclinations. They have different resources. They have different knowledge. They have different means. They have different strategies. So they are not equal in any sense. Similarly, when we look at the animals, they are also different from each other. When we believe in this thing that the root of or the objective laws of international relations, they lies in human nature, here we acknowledge this thing that different states they possess different capabilities. So all the states, whether they are large or small, they must have to adapt to that given reality of unequal power and conduct themselves accordingly. So if they will not accept this reality that all the states are not equal, if they follow the policy of idealism that being sovereign state they deserve equal power and respect, if they imagined that they will be adequately placed in the international order simply because they are also existing as a separate state, then all these things will not be real, will not be based on reality, because in reality states are unequal on many grounds. Further, he said that if states do that, they will survive and perhaps even prosper. It means that if the state acknowledges this reality that they are not equal, if they acknowledge this, if they adopt strategies according to that reality, then there are likely chances that they will survive and they will even prosper, because weaker state, they also have this choice that they can indulge in alliances, they can strengthen their power, they can consolidate their position, they may avoid unnecessary conflicts, or whenever they have disagreement with any other powerful state, then they may try to find a peaceful solution of that conflicting situation rather than indulging in direct confrontation of war. But if the states fail to do that, they will place themselves in jeopardy and may even be destroyed. Ancient history, it is full of many such examples of states and empires, small or large, which were destroyed because they failed to acknowledge the simple reality of international politics. Thucydides, he also emphasizes on the limited choices and the restricted sphere of maneuvering that is available to the rulers whenever they conduct foreign policy. Now here, every state has very limited choices. It means that they have to act according to international reality. They have to follow more or less similar paths. They have similar concerns, and there are not many choices available to them. Also, there is very less scope for maneuvering something, doing something unique. Why? Because there are certain set patterns of behavior in international politics. And whenever they have to make their foreign policy, they have to keep all these limitations in mind, and they have to follow the rules of the game. He also emphasizes that all kind of decisions in international politics, they have their consequences. So no decision goes without any consequences. It is up to the state what kind of decisions they take. Further, Thucydides argued that prudence, caution, and judgment are the characteristics of political ethics of classical realism, and most other classical realists are at points to distinguish from private morality and the principle of justice. Now here Thucydides, like other classical realist scholars, highlighted this particular fact that states are generally guided by prudence, they are guided by their own cautions, they are guided by their own judgments, and private morality and principles of justice, they are not applicable on the behavior of state. So every state will take a decision that is rational or that is prudent according to its own calculations. If a country and its government wish to survive and prosper, they better pay attention to these fundamental political maxims of international relations. It means they have to acknowledge it, they have to work according to it, they have to adopt strategies according to it, they have to behave in the same manner, right? Only then there will be chances that they'll be able to survive and also prosper. In his famous study of the Peloponnesian War, Thucydides conveys his realist philosophy through the leaders of Athens, that was a great power at that time, in their dialogue with the leaders of Melos, a minor power, during a moment of conflict between the two city-states in 416 BC. The Melians made an appeal to the principle of justice, which to them meant that their honor and their dignity as an independent state should be respected by the powerful Athenians. But according to Thucydides, justice is of a special kind in international relations. It is not about equal treatment for all, because states are in fact unequal. So by giving reference to that Peloponnesian War, where a weaker power is in a way appealing to the powerful country, that they should honor, they should respect them, they should respect the dignity and sovereignty of a weaker state, right? So they were demanding equal status from Athenians, but it was rejected. And Thucydides acknowledged that it was rejected on the premises that in reality states are not equal. So somewhere the weaker side failed to acknowledge that. The Melians, they failed to acknowledge that, and they did not get, or their request was not acknowledged and accepted by the Athenians. Second important scholar in classical realism is Machiavelli. He was a prominent Italian scholar of 15th-16th century. Again, on Machiavelli, there was a lot of influence of the time during which he was living. He has seen a lot of fragmentation. He has seen a lot of intervention by church or religion in state affairs. He has seen the weaker authority in the state and how, if the central authority is not strong, then what consequences a state might have to face in that kind of a condition. He has also acknowledged the limitations of morality, ethics, etc. in the behavior of ruler and states. Machiavelli says that power, which is, he signifies or symbolizes power through loin, and deception, again he symbolizes it with fox. These are the two essential means for the conduct of foreign policy, according to the political teachings of Machiavelli. So Machiavelli believes that when we prepare foreign policy or when we deal with other states, we should employ these two strategies. One is power and the second one is deception. Or a king, he should also possess these two qualities, or the head of the state, he should possess these two qualities of being powerful, acting as a lion, being assertive, and deception, cunning, employing diplomatic strategies to protect their interest. Machiavelli also believed that the supreme political value for any state is national freedom or independence. It means that in all kind of conditions, all the states, they must protect their independence, they must protect their freedom. All kind of values can be sacrificed for the sake of protection of freedom, liberty, independence of a state. According to Machiavelli, the main responsibility of the rulers is always to seek the advantages and to defend the interest of their state and thus ensure its survival. So again, the primary responsibility of the state is to ensure its survival. Machiavelli believes that every ruler, they must in all kind of condition ensure the survival of their state. Machiavelli further said and further argued that the state requires strength. If a state is not strong, it will be a standing invitation for others to prey upon it. The ruler must therefore be a lion that also requires cunning if necessary, ruthlessness in the pursuit of self-interest. The ruler must also be like a fox. So the ruler must be having these two qualities of acting as a lion and acting as a fox, according to the situation, according to the requirements. Another important factor is that Machiavelli believed that the world, it is a dangerous place. If any political leader hopes to survive in such a world, he or she must always be aware of the dangers, must anticipate them in time, and must take the necessary precautions against them. And if they hope to prosper, to enrich themselves, and to bask in the reflected in the glory of their accumulated power and strength, Machiavelli further believes that the conduct of foreign policy is thus instrumental, or it is called a Machiavellian activity. It would be based on the intelligent calculation of one's powers and interest as against the power and interest of rivals and competitors. A responsible state leader. Now, these are some of the views of Machiavelli regarding whether ethical principles they have any applicability on the behavior of the ruler or on the behavior of the state. So he says a responsible state leader must not operate in accordance with the principle of Christian ethics like love thy neighbor, be peaceful, and avoid war except in self-defense or in pursuit of a just cause, be charitable, share your wealth with others, always act in good faith, etc., etc. Machiavelli sees these moral maxims as the height of political irresponsibility. Machiavelli's realist writings are sometimes portrayed as manuals on how to thrive in a completely chaotic and immoral world. Thank you.